Welcome to Nashville and Beyond.
I'm Brian Copeland.
And I'm Zach Copeland.
And we're a father-son duo helping people buy, sell, and thrive in Middle Tennessee.
But this isn't just about business. It's also about our family and our community.
It's a front row seat to how we live, work, and serve right here in Music City.
So buckle up as we explore Nashville and Beyond. Well, you know, at some point, every person who lives in Nashville realizes that traffic isn't just annoying. It is a symptom of a bigger problem that we have here in the city.
Yeah, but you've got to decide, what do you want? Do you want to live in a city like Nashville, or do you want to come with the crap that comes with it? You know?
Yeah.
And so it's growth. With growth comes the growth of everything and the growth of quality and all those pieces. So yeah, it's a tough conversation to have, and it's a very heated topic when you bring up these kinds of things in Nashville.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And today's episode is the one about infrastructure, what's above ground, what's below ground, and how this city is trying to keep up.
Yeah, Nashville didn't just grow like this overnight. But it feels like some of our systems didn't get the memo on this one.
Yeah.
We were a city that, was a secondary city that people had heard of because of country music. And I remember coming to Nashville when I was little, back in the 80s, and it was a little town. It's kind of like, it felt like like when you go to Asheville, North Carolina now, that kind of thing. And it just grew so quickly that the infrastructure, the leaders weren't thinking. And part of it was just, you got to plan for these kind of things. And we'll talk about that today with infrastructure and all. But, Nashville was just an overnight success story.
Yeah.
And so I think that, when I first came here and was driving around, of course, when I was little, I wasn't driving here, but I remember coming with mom and dad, and we go to Opryland, and it was traffic was normal, but the time I really started noticing it when I was at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville. I was the assistant director of admissions, and I had this as my territory, and I didn't know because I'd only driven in places like East Tennessee, in the country areas, for us to go 5 minutes somewhere was a major commute.
Yeah.
And so coming to Nashville, I remember this was before we had GPS systems or any of that.
You had to print out your map directions.
I had a
Map
thesaurus. What do you call it? An atlas. I had an atlas.
Okay.
I almost called it a thesaurus. Had an atlas, and I remember having to map things out. And I thought, for me to get from Hillsboro High School for my visit all the way to Hunter's Lane, and that's 7 miles, that's going to take me 10 minutes. So I remember doing my schedule and giving myself 15 minutes to get between the two places, and then getting to Nashville and being like, oh gosh, 7 minutes or 7 miles can be like 30 minutes here. And that was back in the 90s and early 2000s.
Right.
So, congestion was bad back then when I wasn't living here, but here recently, it's gotten even more congested. And that's just not on the highways. It's in a lot of infrastructures.
Yeah, all over the city, especially like one of the roads that we use often is Gallatin Pike. And we have coined a term, Gallatin Piking it, because when it always seems like it's when there's heavy traffic, people decide they want to start crossing the street where there's no crosswalk. And I'm all about, pedestrians being safe and having safe places to walk, but there's just not really a lot of places for them to cross in Gallatin Pike. And when you look at other, areas in the city like West End Avenue, if you look at Edmondson Pike, Murfreesboro Pike, Nolensville Road, Donaldson Pike, all of these roads have just got tons and tons and tons of traffic that are using them because the freeways get so congested that people start using these sub-arteries to get to where they're trying to go to try to bypass the freeway stuff. But there's just so much traffic now that you can't even keep up with it, honestly. The present day experience with traffic, I think, is, like we've mentioned, part of a larger systemic issue here in Nashville, where you have a local government, city government, that is oftentimes at odds with the state government, especially when it comes to things like funding.
Unfortunately, yeah.
And so a lot of things that should just be easy, let's make life better for our citizens becomes this political fight. And it's nasty, and I hate it.
Yeah. And, it affects the quality of life for people on a day-to-day basis here, because when you're talking about infrastructure and you're talking about road infrastructure, you're talking about sewage infrastructure, you're talking about all these things. Infrastructure is just not roads. It becomes, for us in real estate, a selling point and a non-selling point. Because we have a lot of affordability here. When you're looking at Tennessee as a whole, when you're looking at no state income tax, when you're looking at all the things that make people move here from other places like Illinois, like New England, like California, with that comes some hurt of infrastructure because, your potholes don't get filled in as they should.
Yeah.
You drive certain roads in certain areas where taxes are higher, you're going to have amazing infrastructure. So it's a give and take, and it does ultimately hurt the quality of life when the taxes have to go up for people because, again, it gets into an affordability issue, not just with the house prices, but also with the taxes that are there.
Yeah, and in 2013, there was a New York Times article, I think was where it was written, where the writer called Nashville the next it city of America. And in the following 5 to 7 years, Nashville was already growing, but the population growth became 100 people moving to Nashville every single day. And a lot of those people were moving here from smaller towns.
Yeah.
There were, at that time, there were a few big city, Los Angeles, Chicago, New York people that were moving here for music and stuff like that. But the majority of the people who were moving here were from small towns. And so you had 100 people a day moving to a city from small town America where there were maybe 5 or 6 traffic lights in their whole city. And the maximum speed limit was maybe 55 or 60 going down a local highway in their town, to now being in a city that has 3 different interstates all around the city in a big loop, and then other highways and byways around that where people are driving 70, 75, 80 miles an hour, and they know what they're doing and they know where they're going. And you've got these small town people who are, what exit do I take? I've got this old beater car that I use that really can't go faster than 60 miles an hour.
Don't talk about my Bluey car like that. I love that car.
So you've got all, you just got all these issues, but if you've lived here long enough, you start to learn which exits to avoid at all costs and which ones that you have to immediately start taking. Let's talk about the Nashville highway system for a minute.
Yeah. So, once you learn this about Nashville, anytime I sit down with buyers who are moving here, I always talk to them about the wheels and spokes. And once you learn that with Nashville, you're going to be fine in our infrastructure.
Yeah.
I love going to cities like New York and LA, parts of Texas. Everything's on a grid.
Chicago especially.
Yeah, it's on a grid. You know that if you get on 141st and you continue there, it's going to take you here.
Yeah.
And if you get on H, it's going to go this way. There's just a grid to the city.
Yeah.
Nashville has zero grid and zero planning.
Yeah.
It was funny. I was driving last weekend through Smyrna, which is just a suburb here in Nashville. And there was a school that Micah was at playing for the Mid-State Jazz concert. And they just built this school in the middle of nowhere. And the infrastructure to get to the school is awful. I mean, you're on like a 1-lane road in some cases.
Yeah.
And there's 4-way stops in the middle of nowhere. There's no traffic, but it's there for that school time.
Yeah.
And it made me think about Nashville like in 1960 when people were like, what are we doing here? Oh, let's just put a road here. Okay, let's put a road here. Because the wheels and the spokes, you have, of course, the downtown loop of Nashville. And you've got 65, 40, and 24. Those are all interstates that merge in Nashville.
Yep.
In downtown, they all merge. And so, the spoke systems are 24 and 40 and 65. And then you've got the other spokes, which are Nolensville Road, Gallatin Pike, Lebanon Pike, Highway 100, Murfreesboro Road. All those are other spokes that go out, and then you got these wheels. The inner wheel is that downtown loop where all these interstates meet, and then you got this halfway loop, which is 440, Interstate 440, and then you've got technically the inner loop, which is Briley Parkway.
Yep.
But keep in mind, Briley Parkway changes names. Do you know how many times?
No.
Let's count it up here.
Okay.
So Briley Parkway in Madison, where we are now, you take it down to Opry Mills. That's still Briley Parkway. And then when you get south of the city, it becomes Thompson Lane. Okay, so there's the second name. And this is all Highway 155. So it becomes Thompson Lane, and then it becomes Woodmont Boulevard through Green Hills.
Oh, that's right. Yep.
And then when you cross Green Hills and cross Weston Boulevard, what does it become? White Bridge Road.
White Bridge Road, yep.
And then White Bridge Road from that Charlotte Pike intersection just till like a mile, it's called James Robertson. But not the James Robertson downtown.
Yep.
There's a James Robertson downtown, and then there's a James Robertson there. And then now you're back to Briley Parkway. So Briley, when you're going 40 all the way north of the city, back around to the airport, if you take, that's all like Briley Parkway. But Highway 155's got all these different names. That's your inner loop. And then you have your outer loop, which is Old Hickory Boulevard. Now, Old Hickory Boulevard circles the whole city except for when it goes underwater over at the dam. Because most people don't know that Old Hickory Lake is man-made.
Yeah.
And if you've seen the movie Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, at the very end during the credits, you see all these people floating around and these houses floating. That is simulating when Old Hickory Lake was being flooded to create that man-made lake. And supposedly you can still see houses down there.
Allegedly.
So if you're driving Old Hickory Boulevard, you're going to get to one point and it's going to go underwater. So Old Hickory Boulevard ends. And it's kind of like when you're in Atlanta, Georgia, and you've got Peachtree, and everybody's like, hey, I'm at Peachtree Street. Which Peachtree are you at? Well, there's Peachtree everywhere. Same way here in Nashville.
Yeah.
There's Old Hickory in every single direction. On 40, on 24, and on 65, north and south, east and west, you've got Old Hickory. So that's your outer loop. And then now you have your hyperloop that's being built, and that's 840.
Yep.
840 is now finished from Lebanon all the way over to Dixon, and that 840 takes you south of the city and bypasses the city and goes through Murfreesboro, Franklin, College Grove, all that area, and then eventually 840 is going to go all the way up into Clarksville, all the way down through possibly Granville, where you're going to ride horses,
on
all
Friday,
that stuff. And that becomes, so Nashville Metropolitan will eventually be everything inside of 840.
Yeah, huge.
Enormous.
Yeah. And a lot of those, like the 440 and the 840, they were built as in response to a lot of the shipping and logistics needs of the country, where you have 65 and 40 and 24 all meeting together in downtown Nashville.
Yep.
And in order for a shipment of Amish playhouses from Ohio to make it down to Texas, they've got to go through Nashville.
Yep.
And multiply that by the millions of truckers that are on the road. We love our truckers. We support our truckers. But multiply that by all these trucks that are on the road, and they're all having to come through Nashville, plus the just general population of the city that lives here that has to live and work and drive. You've got to have ways to avoid that downtown core, because there's no reason for a truck driver who's doing an interstate shipment to have to drive through a major city like Nashville and be stuck in traffic here.
Well, the Stillman Evans Bridge, that's all we hear all the time is the wrecks there.
Yeah.
And it's only like, 3 lanes wide.
Yeah.
It's a mess.
And the thing that Nashville has done pretty well, I think, in this traffic situation is they've been pretty good about repaving and maintaining that downtown loop. Yeah. When I first moved to Nashville, there were a lot of potholes in there, and it didn't seem like there was a lot of maintenance happening all the time. But now it's to the point where almost every 6 months there is fresh pavement laid out on a new section of that road, and it gets smooth and nice, and then 6 months later it's got to be done again. But a lot of that too is because we talked about the weather here in Nashville last week, and concrete, asphalt, gravel, all of those ingredients that go into making roads, there has to be a period of stable weather for those things to cure properly. And when you've got, like this, in the past month, we had a week of 70 degrees, a week of 20 degrees and then a week of 60 degrees. And now we're back to a week of 20 degrees.
Yeah.
It's really hard for a transportation department for the city or for the state to lay down new asphalt or tar or repave a road, because that heat stress and cold stress is going to cause that product not to set properly. And so then you start to have potholes, and, especially like we mentioned with all the trucks that are driving through here, it's a mess. It's a mess. It can become a mess quite quickly. But you've also got things like I mentioned, there's small town drivers that come in and they're not used to the hustle and bustle of a big metro area like Nashville. And so you start to have accidents. And one thing about Southerners is we love to bottleneck, and we love to rubberneck and stick our neck out the car and see what's going on. I'm the first one to say, oh, I'm posting the Neely's Bend Facebook group. There was an accident. I've got pictures of it. This is what happened.
Yep.
A lot of Southerners are that way, where we want to see what's happened. Not because we like the gore, or if there's, some terrible accident where somebody's maimed on the side of the road. We don't want to see that, but we just nosy. We just like to know what's going on.
Like say we like to help each other know what's going on.
Well, right. Yeah, that's one way of putting it too. But those accidents, especially because of the way Nashville's loop, downtown loop especially, to get onto that loop, you have to enter in from the right-hand side. If you want to exit that loop, you've got to be on the left-hand side of the road. Don't ask me why it works that way, but that's just the way it works. So you have a ton of crossover that's happening, and oftentimes you don't have a lot of time to make that change. And when an accident happens on the downtown loop, the entire loop backs up.
Yeah.
And almost to the point where if you are 3 vehicles behind where the accident happened, if it's a bad enough accident, within 45 minutes, you can see the traffic that's wrapped all the way back around to 100 yards in front of you. And you can see there the tail end of the backup. So that's one of the things that happens a lot here in Nashville, and I wish it didn't. But we do have a great TDOT department that has the big fancy trucks with the lights on the back of them that tell you accident ahead. And they've started to install a lot of these electronic highway signs as well that let you know there's accidents ahead and gives you alternate routes to take. So kudos to TDOT for doing that too.
Well, that's part of the issue too, is people don't understand the difference in TDOT and NDOT.
Right.
And they don't understand that, there are state highways and then there are Nashville highways. And so people get frustrated. They're like, why is this not getting done? Nashville, why are you not doing your job? It's on Tennessee to get it done.
Yep.
And talk to us, let's talk a little bit about car dependency.
Yeah, so car dependency in Nashville is a real thing. I mean, this is kind of a really Western problem, especially in America, especially in Canada. You don't see it so much in the European cities because, of course, they were all built pre-industrial revolution, and so they were designed to be walkable. But in America, in some of your larger cities, everything is very car dependent. Los Angeles is a great example of this too, where the system in the city is just designed around you having a vehicle.
Yeah.
In order for you to get from point A to point B, there's not a lot of sidewalks, there's not a lot of bus stops. You have to get a vehicle to get where you're going. And there's a saying in Nashville that from one point, and you can drop a pin anywhere in Nashville and then drop another pin somewhere else in Nashville, and you're 25 minutes away from it by car, no matter where you've dropped those pins, because you have to get in a vehicle and drive through all kinds of traffic and crazy things like that. And the bus stops that we have in Nashville, we're fortunate. I'm fortunate, I should say, that I've got a bus stop right close by to my house that I could walk to. 2 of them actually. And while I would not ride the bus in Nashville for a various number of reasons, the average person in Nashville is going to have to walk 10 minutes to a bus stop, and then none of the bus stops are covered, or very few of them are covered. Let me say that. And so you've got to have a car to get around. So,
yeah. And our highways, they divide our neighborhoods here.
Yeah.
And so highways have got such a history, honestly, in racism also, because 40 was built to separate the Fisk-Meharry, Tennessee State, that rich, robust, historically black neighborhood from the rest of segregated Nashville. And, so many of the streets we have in the city infrastructure-wise in certain downtown cores were put in place as a form of racism.
Yeah.
And also the infrastructures that were ignored were part of the big race wars that happened here in this area. And so while many of these, and we couldn't do this episode today without acknowledging some of the wrongs that have been done with our infrastructure here for our friends and our clients who fall into diversity categories. It's been a rough history.
Yeah, it has. And when we come back, we're going to talk about something that Nashville doesn't really have, which is public transit and a great rail system. So we'll be right back. We're back, and we're going to talk about public transit in Nashville. And for a city this size, the public transit system here is complicated. It's pretty messy. There is limited bus coverage, as we talked about earlier. The usability of the buses is not great. There was a new program that our new mayor, Freddie O'Connell, has got passed that is increasing bus routes, increasing bus availability into the night. And I hope that more people will start to use the bus, but I am cautiously optimistic.
Yeah, we had a housekeeper once that we bought a bus pass for, so because she didn't have a car, and she just lived. We're in Madison, which is northeast. She lived due north. And so when you're looking as the crow flies, a straight shot, it would take her in a car to get to her house 12 minutes. You would think, okay, with a bus, it's fine. You're going to be a direct line over. So you're probably looking at 30 minutes at that point. No. She had to go all the way south to downtown to the mass transit hub.
Yeah.
And then wait for another bus, get on it, and then head back up. So we're looking at an hour and 15-minute commute for her to take a ride that would normally take, 10 minutes in a car.
Yeah.
And, you and I are huge mass transit freaks. I'll go on a vacation just to ride the mass transit. I mean, and I know that sounds silly, but some people go on vacations to see shows, some go to see sports events. I want to ride the mass transit. I love a city that's got, I love to be on a trip where I got plane, trains, automobiles.
Buses,
I want to do
everything.
Yeah. And when you hit a city like Seattle, or when you hit a city like, Washington, D.C.
We love Washington.
Oh my gosh, just to be able I'll pick a hotel based off of the subway stop being nearby, and to be able to get in that subway and be at where I want to be within 10 minutes, be air conditioned, have Wi-Fi. And it's amazing. I love that kind of it. And I love getting off the subway and then finding a bus that's going to take me where I need to go.
Yeah.
And then getting on a ferry that's going to take me where I need to go.
Yeah.
I love that. And Nashville does not have that piece. And so when you're looking at our mass transit, there is an issue there. And it's something that's been tried to solve before. But it turns into, excuse my French here, a political pissing war. We put a mass transit referendum up for voting several years ago here in Nashville, and some exterior sources got involved in it.
Yep.
And they started doing some scare tactics, saying that mass transit brings unsightly people into your suburban neighborhoods, and your crime's going to go up, and all this stuff. It just turned really political.
Yeah.
When it was more about how do we, because mass transit's not for just people who need affordability.
Right.
It's about those of us who want to have. I would take it every single day.
Yeah.
If I could.
Yeah.
Because
convenience, ease of access.
Yes.
All those things.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I want to do that. But it became so politicized They even got so bad that where there was something passed that said you can't use any lane on a highway except for cars, because that was one of the things people were talking about was, hey, can we put a rail here on this highway? And again, and then when you look at Nashville, which has a certain political leaning, versus all of its areas on the outlying areas that have a different political leaning, they say that only benefits Nashville when we get mass transit, when that's not true.
Yeah.
It also benefits Lebanon. It also benefits
Gallatin,
Columbia, Tennessee, Gallatin, Springfield,
Clarksville,
all these areas.
Yeah.
Because that's where people have to come work, and they say, well, I can get a job, go get a job in Clarksville. Yeah, enjoy that salary there. That's going to be half of what you would get in Nashville.
Right.
And so it does help. And when you're looking at the DC commuters, you've got people who are making $300,000-$400,000 a year on mass transit.
Yeah,
because it's what they're choosing to ride.
Yeah. So in Nashville, I think one of the things that, if you look at the Nashville subreddits, if you look at neighborhood conversations, one of the things that people want the most in Nashville is a light rail system, because it's fast. It works in other cities, but again, historically, Nashville has not planned for the huge population growth that they've seen, and so you've got all of these highway systems and major road artery systems that people just don't want to tear up to put a light rail system on them. But it would just be so nice. Nashville does have one commuter train, and it's the Nashville Star. And I watched a video about the Nashville Star in preparation for this podcast because I wanted to know more information about it. And it's got like 5 stops. There are 2 trains that run, and they go in opposite directions. And the guy who was doing this video got on the train, and after about the 3rd stop, it was just him on the train. People don't ride it. People don't know that it exists. Their ridership numbers are like less than 3,000 riders a year on this train. But, it's because it's only got one track, and it only goes one direction.
To Lebanon, to downtown.
Yep, and that's it.
And it's not cheap.
It's not cheap either.
It's
no,
not cheap at
no,
all.
You're going to pay an arm and a leg for this like really cramped, outdated old train car. And it's got 2 levels on it, and don't get me wrong, if you sit up on the top level, there's some great views. You're also going to go through some industrial parks that have some not so great views. But what Nashville really needs, in my opinion, is a true light rail system with kind of a mimic of the spokes and wheels that we have right now with our highway system. I mean, if there was a light rail system that would connect Clarksville to Murfreesboro, and that would go from downtown to Madison, downtown to Antioch, downtown to West Nashville to Green Hills, and maybe connect with some wheels on the outer edges as well, that would just be so great.
Yeah.
I would happily take a bus to a train station and ride the train into downtown Nashville to go see a show and a concert, instead of having to drive down there, find parking, pay $45 to park for 2 hours, which, by the way, Metropolis got sued,
for that.
and they have a settlement. So if you are not a fan of Metropolis, you are eligible for up to $30 in free credits. It's paid out as a $15 credit twice, and they've had to make a lot of changes to their signage in the city and things like that. So, but yeah, that's kind of where we're at. You got the Nashville Star, but that's really it. So
yeah. A lot of Nashville infrastructure was never designed for the population we have now.
Yeah.
So it goes beyond traffic.
It does.
We did a study when I was president of Greater Nashville Realtors. In that time frame, I was not present the whole entire time, but during that time frame, where we hired an outside consulting firm. We were in partnership with the Chamber of Commerce to check the infrastructures of Nashville, which include water, sewage, all those things. And when we got the study back, Nashville's got a lot of these issues.
Mm-hmm.
When you're looking at our water supply, when you're looking at our pipes, all those infrastructure. We're very lucky here in Madison because we've got the Madison Suburban Utility District.
Yeah.
So we're in a different water supply. But some of the other supplies, the infrastructures are aging.
Mm-hmm.
And while those are private utilities, some of those things are provided through tax dollars and the infrastructure that supports those things. And unfortunately, Nashville has not been the best steward of its money when it comes to infrastructure. It's kind of like when you're my age and you're like, okay, I got a check today for $1,000. I should take $500 of this and put it in my retirement. Do I do that? No. I put $500 toward Lego for you kids, and then I go and it doesn't happen. It's the same way when you're looking at taxes. You get it, and you're like, some of this needs to go rebuild this infrastructure, but it doesn't go there. Just like when we when Nashville passed the short-term Airbnb short-term rental fees for to have more policing of it. Well, that money didn't go to police Airbnbs; it went for something else.
Yeah.
And Nashville's really bad about redirecting money like that when we shouldn't. And we've got to do a better job of starting to invest in those infrastructures. There was also a situation where there was a sidewalk bill that was a huge deal, probably back in 2018, 2019. Forgive me if you're listening and fact checking me. I don't remember, but it was around that time frame that said any person who is building a new home, especially in an urban infill area. So if you're looking at East Nashville or you're looking at, Green Hills, that you had to build the sidewalk in front of your home. So right now you'll be walking through Nashville and there will be sidewalks that just end.
Yeah.
And then you'll see no sidewalk for like another 200 yards, and there's another sidewalk up there because some developer or someone who was renovating the home had to put that portion in. So we're missing sidewalks throughout the city. Our walkability scores in certain areas like 5 points in Hillsborough Village, in Belmont, Belmead Boulevard, those have got wonderful walk scores. But when you're in places like Madison, in places like Woodbine, places like certain parts of Green Hills, you don't have great walkability at all.
Yeah, and the other thing too, because I've talked about this. I'm a big justice person, and I like being a voice for people that I feel maybe don't have as strong of a voice or are heard. One of the things that I've noticed pretty consistently in a lot of parts of the city is even when there are sidewalks built, they're almost unusable because homeowners will put a mailbox right in the middle of the sidewalk. And while it's convenient for the homeowner and it's convenient for the postal service, you got to think about people that are wheelchair users.
Yeah.
There's no way for them to get around these light poles and traffic poles and all of the mailboxes and stuff that are stuck out here in the middle of the sidewalk. And so what do? Well, their options are run their wheelchair through your private property, or get their wheelchair out in the middle of the road and back traffic up. The other thing in Nashville that is really struggling, and people don't really talk about it as much because it doesn't really affect us until there's a big storm. But that's the power grid in Nashville. Yeah. Our power comes from TVA. Nashville Electric Service is the provider, but they buy their power from TVA and the Tennessee Valley Authority. They charge whatever they want basically for power because it's a really unregulated industry. When there are storms in like 2 miles from here, it can knock out power to us. And especially us being down here in the bend of the Cumberland River, I don't know why, but for some reason your house is on a different power grid than my house is on. Because if the power goes out up here and knocks out almost all of the bend, for some reason y'all still have power.
Well, we have a generator.
Well, I know y'all have a generator.
I never know when my power goes off, honestly.
Right, because y'all have a generator. But I think y'all's power is tied in across the Cumberland down there at some point.
We're so country. We just have a little bunch of gerbils running around.
Right.
Making our power.
Right. I'm really shocked y'all don't have solar, to be honest. I know y'all had thought about it at one point, and I would love for Dad to do photovoltaic agriculture, which is this fancy way of saying you have solar panels up high, like 8 feet above the ground, and then you've got your garden underneath it, and it keeps the garden cool, and the moisture that comes up from the garden keeps the underneath of the solar panels cool, and it's this really neat balance between nature and technology.
Wouldn't it be great if we had that all over Nashville?
It would be so great. Like if all of our parking lots had solar panels over them, that'd be great. You keep your car cool. It would keep the parking lots cooler, so the ambient air temperature would be down. But I'm going off on a bird trail here.
Yeah, it's fine. And, going back to sidewalks, there's a lot of Nashville that feels piecemealed together.
Yeah. Just
because of poor planning, and then this ultimately having to retrofit the infrastructure after the fact.
Yeah.
And there's, when you're looking at urban infill, there's several types of building practices, especially if you're a buyer coming to Nashville. You have to understand that, of course, we have our historic homes and our historic overlays, which are part of our infrastructure, but we also have urban infill homes. And when these urban infill homes are built and say a lot is empty or a home is torn down that can't be saved in a historic situation, or it's not in a historic overlay, then there's infrastructure that has to be put in place. Mm-hmm. And what a lot of home buyers don't realize is when you are responsible from the sewage at the street to your house. That's your responsibility.
Right.
Everybody thinks if you have a sewage leak or whatever that's going to be on the city to do. No. From the pipe at the street to your home is your responsibility. Mm-hmm. So when you're getting home inspections, you've got to be very aware of these things, because some of these builders, just because they are doing an urban infill home doesn't mean they've done the infrastructure. If you're going into a suburban area like White House, or you're going down to Nolensville or College Grove, these neighborhoods are being set up in this what we call horizontal development. They're putting the new infrastructure in of water pipes, of electricity,
gas pipes.
They're all done.
Yeah.
And they're done right. But when you're doing urban infill in these old areas, you're not guaranteed. So you got to make sure, if you're doing your home inspection, that you're getting that sewage inspection, because roughly the ones I see, about 20% of them need complete revamping, and you're looking at thousands of dollars.
Yeah, tens of thousands of dollars. Yeah. There's a development really close to here called I hate to say the name, but I'll say it, Fox Valley.
Fox Valley, yeah.
And the builder is Ryan Holmes. And we have our opinions about that builder. But the issue that they have is they've had tons of sewage leaks over there.
Yeah.
And we know that because we have to drive up Neely's Bend.
Because Edna tells us.
And because there's this lady in our neighborhood Facebook group named Edna. And she is always trying to make these posts that she's just a cranky old woman with nothing better to do than just complain about everything. The sun is shining too bright today.
Right.
Or it's so hot today. Or I saw this man walking down the street taking pictures. Lock your doors, hide your kids, hide your wives, all this kind of stuff.
So we're driving through sewage, and she had to report it, so we know about the sewage. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's because this builder didn't properly make connections from the sewage at the street, the sewer systems at the street into their community, because it just keeps happening over and over and over.
And we don't know for a fact, but that's what it seems like.
Yeah. Caveat: we don't know that for a fact.
We do not know that for a fact.
So just speculation.
Yeah, I guess it's time for a break, and when we come back, we'll talk about big ideas and big questions.
So every growing city eventually starts chasing these really big, nuanced ideas. For us, it is, of course,
the tunnel. And gosh, I don't even know where we stand on that thing right now. Elon Musk decided that he was going to build a tunnel between downtown Nashville and our airport area. And they've started that dig. And the news has shown that the contractors aren't getting paid. And do you know where it's standing right now at all?
Right now, I know that there's a big hole in the ground. and the contractors have allegedly not been paid, as has been reported on by the news, like you mentioned. The biggest issue with this was that it was basically Elon Musk was given permission by the state of Tennessee, not the city of Nashville, to do this big project in the city of Nashville. But Nashvillians had no vote or no voice on this. And it wasn't just like a, yes, you have permission to do it. It was a, you have permission, and we're also going to give you a lot of money too to do this, so that you don't really have to pay anything for it. And, you know, there are people who live in Nashville know this area is built on limestone. And limestone is notoriously hard to dig through.
Yeah.
The tunnels that were built by Musk over in Los Angeles and San Francisco, Vegas, they don't have the same kind of soil that we have over here, or the same kind of bedrock that we have over here. Theirs is a lot lighter, a lot more porous, and it's a lot easier to dig through. Here in Nashville, you've got limestone. Almost in all of Tennessee, you have limestone as the bedrock of this state. And I don't know how he's going to get through it. I think it's going to turn into a money pit where he gets all this money for it, and it ends up not being finished, but he's somehow able to keep the money. And yeah, I don't like it at all. I don't like the whole idea of it, especially because it's not something that is going to be usable by the general public in Nashville. It is basically a 2-lane tunnel for Tesla vehicles only. And the only exception to that is that government officials can also use the tunnel to get from the airport into downtown Nashville at the courthouse. And so it feels like it was really just kind of built for government officials, so that they could, especially the state reps and the state governments, that they could get from the airport to their offices in downtown without having to deal with the same traffic that the rest of us have to deal with. So,
and ultimately, those kind of projects just distract from the basics of what we need. You know, we've got so much infrastructure stuff going on, which we'll talk about later. It's just those things are just distractions for us. So just know that the tunnel's going on. I don't know if it'll get finished, but you know, if you're moving to Nashville, just follow that. Just know that that's happening here, and know that not all infrastructure decisions happen at this scale. A lot of the infrastructure comes down to zoning and local decisions also.
Yeah, so you know, there's a lot of new zoning and housing laws that have just been passed recently in Nashville that make it easier to build those kind of infill housing units that you were talking about, that are making it easier to do duplexes and triplexes and quadplexes and multiplexes and townhomes and those kind of courtyard townhome areas. And so I just saw you yawn, so now I've got a yawn.
No, I was trying not to sneeze.
Oh, it looked like a yawn.
No, I've been trying not to sneeze, and so that's my way of combating it. So sorry,
it triggered my yawn reaction. It
sorry,
did,
buddy.
So there's a junkyard here in Madison, specifically in Neely's Bend, that is just an eyesore.
It's so ugly.
It's hideous. And I ended up reaching out.
It's in the middle of a residential neighborhood, though. Let's just paint the picture of this.
Yes. So you turn down this street in Nashville, and there are these, you know, single family homes on these half-acre or acre lots.
Gorgeous homes.
An
events venue that's got a barn to have weddings. It's beautiful.
And then out of nowhere is a junkyard.
Not
even just a junkyard, a scrapyard.
Yep.
Where you have all of these vehicles, and there are probably 100 vehicles,
if we're lucky,
on this property, and many of them are missing tires, missing doors, missing windows, missing engines, missing engine blocks, or some multi-combination thereof.
Yep.
And they're packed so tightly together that there's no way for the owner of this property to even get in there with like a weed eater or a lawnmower or anything like that. So there are almost certainly vermin and pests and things of that nature that are living in that as well. They don't have any kind of coverage on the front of their property that fronts the road. So you've got, I mean, they planted trees at one point years and years and years ago because they're big, tall, healthy mature trees now. But you can see straight into this chain link fence wrapped junkyard.
Yep.
And so I just kind of got tired of it, and I can be a Karen when it comes to this. I'm MMFP Junior, and if you don't know what MMFP is, message Brian. He'll tell you exactly what it is.
I will.
He'll be glad to tell you. It's one of his alter egos, and when it comes out, run. But I can be the junior version of this. And I kind of was in a mood the other day and was driving past it, and I was like, I'm sick of seeing this thing. So I reached out to our council person for our district, local council person. We love her to death.
Love.
Tanya Hancock, amazing, amazing human being. She's been a client of ours in the past, and we just love her. But I reached out to her, and I was like, hey, what can we do about this? Is it possible to get something done so that they can go away? And she was like, honestly, no. There have been some grandfathered in policies for them, and there have been some changes that they are immune to, and it's just going to be next to impossible to get them gone.
Yeah.
So,
and this is why zoning is so important, because this has commercial zoning, and so many times you see eyesores in your neighborhoods. And I always tell everybody when they move to Nashville, I'm like, understand Galveston Pike, Nolensville Road, parts of even right through Belmead and Highway 100, they're always going to be ugly because of our infrastructure and our enforcement of certain things back then. Like we didn't have certain sign ordinances in place, certain ordinances to make sure that unsightly things were
on the back
hedged,
of the property,
hedged correctly.
Yeah,
because right now, if you look at like things on Gallatin Pike when it's being built, like the Publix, they did a lot of the parking. They're focusing on parking behind the building or under the building, as opposed to they want that nice streetscape out front.
Mm-hmm.
So there's been some smart things happen, but when you're looking at the older stuff, as a buyer, when you're moving here, you have to remember things are going to be ugly.
Yeah.
And along, especially along Gallatin Pike, Nolensville Pike, Murfreesboro Road, and it's not going to change anytime soon, probably in your lifetime living here.
You think?
No. And I think, I remember when the plan of Nashville, which was put forth by the Civic Design Center. If you're not familiar with the Civic Design Center, Google them, go look at everything they do to kind of vision what Nashville could look like.
Mm-hmm.
They did a plan for Dickerson Pike. And Dickerson Pike is the original road into Nashville. It was carved by buffalo. So if you were downtown and you see as First Avenue becomes Dickerson Pike, just outside the Titan Stadium,
that art,
you're going to see that buffalo statue. I remember when those statues were put in, and I remember them saying this is the gateway to Nashville, and they were saying we're going to be doing all these things along Dickerson Pike, and I just kind of laughed. Greg and I bought Fern Avenue, most of that street up there, and we bought acres up there back then for a little nothing that now sell for millions. And we were kind of laughing going, that will never happen. And now I drive up Dickerson Pike and I'm like, wow, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
And the way they're doing smart development there, where you see bike lanes mixed with pedestrian walking, mixed with correct mass transit shelters, all those things. It's pretty impressive. But in that, we have to remember that that infrastructure takes time.
Yeah.
And a lot of the things that were built in Nashville and a lot of these streets, they just don't have the beauty that you would expect.
Yeah.
So some of these things are going to take time to get. We're getting there. The joy is things like Plan of Nashville, the Civic Design Center, Greater Nashville Realtors, the Chamber of Commerce. They're all working toward creating a more beautiful infrastructure for us all.
Yeah, and it's important that you have those local organizations and affiliations that advocate for making the city beautiful. All those organizations that you just mentioned are a huge part of the new East Bank development that's happening, and the input that they've had on those. If you go online and look at the renderings for what the East Bank is projected to look like, it is gorgeous. And there was for a long time was it a recycling center?
Scrap metal plant.
A scrap metal plant.
That was grandfathered in.
Acres and acres and acres of this thing.
Hundreds of acres.
That you could see from all the hotels in downtown because it was right next to downtown Nashville. I mean, it was across the street from the Nissan Stadium, which is also being rebuilt. That scrapyard has been purchased. The Nissan Stadium that exists now will be torn down, and all of that is going to be redeveloped into some of the most beautiful, thoughtfully planned and designed urban core environment that you can imagine. It really is going to be a hub for amazing nightlife. There's a giant outdoor theater that's being put in there. T-Pack is moving there. Shops and malls.
Affordable
housing.
Condos,
that is how you do it right. Is there on the East Bank.
And that'll continue all the way up to what I just said about Fern Avenue.
Yeah.
So it starts there just where we talked about the Stillman Edmonds Bridge. So if you're standing on that bridge and you look over, that's where it starts. And then it goes all the way up. You're going to pass the new Titans Stadium. You're going to cross Cowan. You're going to see Top Golf there. And it's going to continue all the way. That's River North now. And it ends right there at Vashti, which is at the bottom of Fern Avenue.
Bless you.
So you're welcome. Gesundheit. So it's pretty amazing what's going on there. And so those of you who are moving to Nashville, those of you who are now in your 20s, look forward to, when you get into your 30s and 40s, what you're going to be seeing in this area.
Absolutely. And if you are in your 20s or 30s or 40s, because, we have learned that is the new average age of the first-time home buyer, someone in their 40s. If you are looking at all of the options here in the city and you're thinking, gosh, I just can't afford any of this stuff, just want to remind you that there are down payment grants available to you. There are so many options, unused money every year that just is left sitting. Think about it like scholarships, especially for those of you who have just been through the college experience. You hear from your college admissions team, from your high school counselors, that there is millions and millions of dollars left on the table every year in scholarships that people just don't ever even sign up for because they don't know exist. The same thing exists for first-time grants for home buyers that can assist you with closing costs. It can be used towards down payment. It can be used towards points off your loan rate from your lender, all these different things that it can be used for. And there are hundreds of programs out there available. But in Nashville specifically, there are a lot of areas where you can get up to $10,000 in your closing costs covered. So just wanted to plug that real quick since we were talking about it. But before we wrap up, let's lighten things up a little bit with a friendly edition of Nashville Rather's Infrastructure.
Yay. So I'll start us out here. Would you rather sit in traffic or wait on a delayed train?
For me, I think I would rather sit in traffic just because I'm a big music person and I love to feel the music. I don't want to just hear the music. I want to feel the music. And so if I'm in my own vehicle, I can crank that sucker's volume all the way up and just sit and listen to some Erykah Badu. And maybe I can even open my truck and get out into the road if the traffic is that bad and shake my booty for a little bit if I want to.
Shake.
So what about you?
I don't like either one of them,
right?
Because a train, if you're underground, I mean, it's just miserable down there.
Yeah.
Or it's super cold waiting.
Yeah.
If you're outside the ground, it's super cold there.
Yeah.
I just don't like either one, so I don't like sitting in traffic. So I'd have to pick sitting in traffic.
Well,
for the same reasons, because I can control that.
Yeah, and the other thing too is that in Nashville, you may be sitting in traffic because of a delayed train.
Yeah.
Because there are, like I said, there's only one commuter rail line that goes through Nashville, but there are, I think, maybe 6 or 7 industrial lines that go through Nashville, and they cross over busy streets, and so they may actually stop and cause traffic to back up as well. But would you rather have sidewalks everywhere or wider roads?
Sidewalks everywhere.
Absolutely.
Give me sidewalks.
Same page.
But our people would drive on them. So
yeah,
people are like, I'm just going to drive on that sidewalk.
Exactly, exactly.
Sidewalks are so important. I love seeing the city by foot. I'm one that will literally, if I go to New York City, I will walk from Times Square down to the Statue of Liberty. Yeah. I will take that 2 hour. I was in Chicago and I took a 2-hour walk north just because I could.
Yeah.
And I think that if you've got the mobility to do it and you've got the infrastructure to do it, go do it.
I would do it too. It's just both times we've been to New York, it's been freezing cold. And so I've just been like, get me indoors as quickly as possible. But if we go in the summer, I'll be happy to do a 2-hour walk with you. So
So that would be great. Thank you.
I would, yeah.
Would you rather fix what's underground currently or build something new?
You know, I'm going to say we need to fix what's underground first before we build anything else new. So, what about you?
It's tough because at my age, I mean, am I being egocentric and thinking only of myself? Or am I thinking about the future? The egocentric me says, no, put me something big there. I want to see a nice new big building because I get to see it in my lifetime.
Yeah.
But that's not who I am at the heart of who I am. I believe, I'm not going to say the children are our future because that was really, I was like, no.
So cliche.
I do believe that we've got to set up the future. And I would rather see your kids and Micah and Esther's kids and our great-grandchildren enjoy the infrastructure in a healthy place. So absolutely, let's go underground. Density or sprawl?
Oh gosh, I love density. There's part of me that really loves the idea of where we're at in Madison, especially it feels very rural, especially down where y'all are, and it is rural. I mean, y'all are in a special rural zone. I think, right? Y'all are in a special rural zoning area.
Yeah, we are.
But you're also within the city limits of Davidson County and of Nashville proper, and Metro Police and Metro Fire and all that stuff serve y'all. So that's really cool. But I look at cities like Los Angeles, Houston. There's a city in Japan. I forget which one it is, but at one point it was the largest city in the world. And when you look at satellite imagery of it, hundreds of miles of just sprawl, and they've got density and sprawl. But I think density would be better just because we need more affordable options. And, if you want all of these restaurants and shops and experiences and hotels and bars and casinos and all that stuff in a downtown area, you have to serve the people who serve you in those places.
Yep.
And that means providing them with access to affordable, livable, walkable spaces. And if you don't have density, you can't have that. So what about you?
Yeah, I don't like either one of them either.
Okay.
But, it's because you say, well, I don't want either because I want Nashville to stay the way it is. Y'all, it ain't happening. Opryland is closed.
Yeah.
It's not coming back. Yeah. You're not going to get Music Row back the way it was.
Yep.
It's not going to happen.
Yep.
So I have to pick the less of two evils, and that's absolutely.
Yeah. Although
density.
Nate Bargatze may be bringing a theme park to Nashville.
Yes, so hopefully so. We would absolutely love that.
That'd be awesome.
So that feels about realistic as it gets as infrastructure conversations get.
Yeah. So we've covered a lot of ground today. Really, we've talked about the highway systems, and we've talked about the local infrastructure and zoning and all of those things. It was a lot to digest. So if you're still here and you've still stuck around, thank you. You deserve a cookie and crumble. I would recommend. So
and Nashville. We've got to really plan for what's coming ahead. And so if you're a listener and you think about running for Metro Council or being a part of our system, please do. If you have an opportunity to go to one of the listening sessions that the Nashville Civic Design Center does, that your Metro Council person does, please go to those sessions. Listen, be a part. At our church, we host these kind of sessions.
We do.
People come in and what you hear and what they really take, they do.
Yeah.
And when you get these surveys, there's some about designing parks that are going out right now. Mm-hmm. Get involved in that and be a part of that.
Yeah, and just don't listen to the Ednas while you're there because they'll ruin your day.
Poor Edna.
But whether you're listening to us today in traffic, or if you're on a walk, you're in your office, you're in your home, thanks for being here.
Or waiting on a train.
That's right. Or a plane, or a boat.
Yeah, that's Nashville and Beyond. Thanks for listening.
This podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only. It does not constitute legal, financial, or real estate advice. Listeners should always consult licensed professionals for guidance specific to their situation. Brian and Zach Copeland are licensed real estate agents with Compass 615-522-5100. Music Dusty Boots by Eco Leaks, Nashville and Beyond, copyright 2026.